Actually, I'm going to be talking about the dial of public access of rock climbing areas of California State Park and Central Preserve and Reserve. My proposal is to limit public access of off-the-trail areas of California State Park National, Culture Preserve and Reserve as it's a negative impact of rock climbing. Since it's most likely unfamiliar issues and a brief background is that the California State Department of Park and Recreation has repeatedly proposed a ban of all off-trail use in all states preserve and reserve. This would also mean most climate areas would be off limits because they can only reach the hikers off trail. It is also a hiking. Many areas includes Chino Hills Park, State Park, which is a preserve. That last attempt to implement bans on off-trails use was rejected in 2012. In 2016, a edit proposed prohibit off-trails was introduced in 2000 for public comments. I have 3 secondary claims to support my proposal to public access to off-trails areas in California State Parks, National and Culture Preserve and Reserve. Has a negative impact in recreation rock climbing, which rock climbing is recognized as an important informed recreation in preserve and reserve. Secondly, previous proposal to limit public access on off-trail areas would be placed. And third, bouldering activities was not shown evidence of negative impacts of our culture and play. Expanding on our rock climbing begins recognizing an important form of recreation in preserve and reserve. It is a state and California Public Research Code, section 5001A, that is remain evidence now and into the future that state parks must be protected by California habitary and welcome in order that visitors may understand these special spaces to have been set aside for information to enjoy. Several of the rock climbing and boulders areas in the state which would be affected negatively had banned off of trails and access and have include decades of national and international rock climbing guidebooks and highly recommended locations for sports. On May 31st, 2017, 3 rock climbing advocate groups, the Access Fund, the Allies of Climbers of San Diego, and the Bay Area Climbers Collection jointly sent a California Department of Park and Recreation, also known as DPR, the following commissions regarding the proposal amendments to replace and repeal CCR section 4325, title 14, chapter 1, regarding off-trail use recreation of state preserve and reserve. So there's a quote saying that California state park officers of wide range of recreation opportunities and multiple users of groups including significant rock climbing research throughout the state. Then proposed regarding prohibit is also used unless such as on the trail. Boardwalks are in designated off-trails areas to continue to have potential to impact the rock climbing opportunities it states in California, preserve California. So regarding my second claim, which the state provides proposal limits public access to trails, areas and replace. Acknowledge and support proposal to limit public access to off-trail areas of California State Park and Culture. Has a negative impact on recreation rock climbing. Rock climbing is an activity particularly in 3 groups mentioned earlier. Lobby of non-stop encourage access continue to be permit of rock climbing areas, which it states. With a repeal of original proposal in 2012, there was a false sense of issues of resolving. Only through rock climbing, the advocate states that extreme observer did not become aware of the amendment to the proposal in 2016. Contracting California Parks the following with responsive giving California Department of Research, DRP, a second public comment period for drafting California codes off of trails restriction and preserve within the state park system. This proposal was include the notification of proposal rulemaking published on April 8, 2016. Amendments have been made. The draft regarding rock climbing lobbyists did not foresee the development since nothing has changed since 2012 repeal. So my final claim of support is that the limit public access of trails areas of California State National Park Reserve has negative impacts on rock climbing and boulders that have no negative impact in culture preserve and reserve. Boulders and style of rock climbing done in the culture. There are no ropes or harness used. There are no attachment to these rocks. Boulders are low level climb with no equipment needed other than shoes, chalk, and a crash mat. Wow. It is also less extreme than more advanced rock climbing techniques. This is still challenging and it is very popular of activities in the state purview and reserve. The area has also been accessed to public and are most needed site appropriate for building the state of California. Since the 2012 repeal of the ban, on the ban of the use of off-trail areas, there will still be no finding of any damage of off-trail areas, including rock climbing, to justify 2016 proposal amendment and already repealed proposed denied access to off-trail areas by the public, which would negatively affect research users. So when you guys go hiking and everything, I go rock climbing a lot, so I used to, and we're just using chalk. You're not killing the environment, so the proposal was about killing the rocks and making damage to it. For now, 2012 repeal will ensure increase to off-trail areas and still in effect. The public has access to off-trail areas in California State Park. I propose that it should be a limit public access to off-trails areas. California State Park has a negative impact, and that's my conclusion. Thank you.
All right, Ashley, I could not tell for the first 2 minutes which way you were going on this. It was just completely confusing. I think the problem is that you have gotten bogged down in all of this arcane material from the hearings and the procedures instead of telling us what the argument is. And you end up reading sections of proposed legislation, responses to sections of proposed legislations, policies that are in place that have been repealed, repeals and explanations about whether the court order, and I don't think anybody knows what the hell is going on here. You just need to be pretty simple here and say, there are proposals to restrict rock climbing because it's environmentally harmful. Those are unnecessary because it's not environmentally harmful, and denying people access to rock climbing is harmful. That's your argument. You know, and you just need to get to the crux of the argument. You are just buried in all of this legalese and jargon that doesn't mean anything. And sometimes you're presenting it as a claim, and it sounds like it's, well, some of the sentences don't even sound like they have verbs in them. I'm not exactly sure what inference I'm supposed to draw from those particular points. So I think you probably understand what the issue is. What you haven't done is present it very clearly to the audience, and so that's a problem. I mean, I can tell that you've done some research because obviously you've had access to rulings, procedural things, responses to the procedural proposals, that sort of thing. But you have to sift through all of that and say, here's what's evidence, what's my claim, and let me put that together instead of presenting all of this stuff as if it is the argument, because it's not the argument. It's not. It's barely the context for the argument. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry if I sound a little harsh, but I was just like I was buried. I mean, I'm going, wait. And I remember you're talking. I mean, I saw your outline, and I thought we talked about it.